Hey, hi there Facebook viewers, and my first here presenting to World Challenge TV, so happy to be here with you. I'm actually acting as meet director here for the challenge, as well as competing, so I've kind of got dual roles, but there's a really interesting topic which has come to light throughout the course of the competition with the AAAs, which involves whether or not a team should be allowed to protest a score. As in, they look at the judged round, have a disagreement, say no, there's no way that could be a bust. Should they be allowed to protest? Now, at the World Challenge, I've always tried to put an emphasis on the accuracy of scoring. So I've tried to give the judges as much leeway as possible to make those calls. So we're going to talk about this and see pros and cons. So joining me for the discussion, I've got Kurt Gable, who
Hello.
You've all met plenty today.
To be back here again, I'm getting ready.
Gary Smith, for those of you who don't know Gary, he's quite a well-known character. He's the coach for Hayabusa. So for them, this is obviously a topic based on some of the protests and how it would affect them if a re-judgment was to happen. Leslie Gale, who you've all probably seen lots of times, a prolific 4-way, 8-way competitor, runs Skydive Mag. So yeah, obviously you've got a lot more experience than me when it comes to these things. But I very much look at this from a layman's perspective. Apart from my fun competition, I look at it from an outsider's point of view and try and make sure things are as fair as possible, because I want to look all of the competitors in the eye at the end, shake their hand and know that I've done the best for them to give them the right results. So who should we start with? Maybe Gary.
I'm ready.
What do you think? Because obviously we've discussed this a bit in the
First of all, I think as an old competitor, we all want the most accurate score. There's no doubt. And of course, to get that most accurate score, you want your best judges available, and then also you need the best technology. And on top of all of that, maybe they would have to view it 100 times sometimes to get that accurate score. But on the other side, the flip side of the coin, we also come here to a competition, and if I had to go to an IPC, FAI event, we know what we can protest and we cannot. And for me, the can of worms that you've opened a little bit to try and make it fairer has almost opened up another can of worms. It's kind of, yes, is it, if all of a sudden we can start protesting, what happens if every team starts protesting? Then all of a sudden we're never going to get a score out, because we're all protesting something. And then, for example, what happened last night with the Hayabusa, or the Wemby, we saw the scores, and when it's going at that speed, I understand that there could be errors in that. So yes, that Wemby could go protest their score. And as a coach of the opposition team, there's nothing I can do against it, and it has nothing to do with me. There's no bearing on it. It's just a case of let's get a score out at least, so when we go to bed we know where we are and what's happening. So that would be to keep that one simple. Obviously, if the score changed, you have a bad feeling and say, well, surely we should go and look at our jump, because maybe there was a freeze frame that we thought we should have scored, we did not score. But I think in the how can I say it, in the meet atmosphere, we accept what the judges do. You've brought the judges out here, and we could all say, well, we're better than them, or we this and we that. They could also say, we can fly better than you, and I say, well, probably you can. But at the end of the day, I trust what the judges are doing. And yes, if we have a time penalty on an entrance, or something happens in the tunnel and the operator gives us the wrong speed, or we jump in and the plane stalls, we can go everything. But at the end of the day, as a competitor and a coach, you have to trust the judges that are on site. And if not, what are we doing? It's like going to watch a soccer game, you don't trust the ref. You have to trust who's doing it.
We now have obviously a video ref, obviously FIFA.
Yeah.
On that
of
for a
course,
while,
that's going in, because the ref has, in soccer, is one man making a decision that's affecting millions and millions of dollars when you're going into Champions Leagues or whatever. Our sport is so small, and if we had that millions of dollars, maybe we could pay the judges, that we had those judges judging every day to be fully professional, and then they would be better than all of us. But we see the videos. I see busts for other teams. Should I go and protest and say, hey, to make everything fair, there was a bus there, but I don't. I cannot protest another team. So I was going to say, and that's where I was saying, if you open up the one can of worms, there's another few other cans of worms that are going to open to make it fair.
Yeah.
And as I've spoken to a couple of the competitors to almost say, it's not only my opinion, it's a case of, if we're going to open up and let everybody protest to get the fairest out, then almost we should have 20 judges judging, because then you're getting a different opinion, you know. So like you said, I think you said 5 judges. You would love to have 5 judges doing it. So, but at the end of the day, that's not where our sport is right now. So that's kind of where I'm on it.
What do you think, Kurt?
Well, I see myself more or less like an observer or an historian in this whole thing anyway. I don't really have a position. I agree with everything. You know, I agree any score should be as accurate as possible. No doubt about this. You know, it's not about the judges. It's not about the hosts. It's not about whatever. It's about the competitors and the teams, and they should get the fairest and most accurate score no matter what it takes. So I fully agree with that. Then there's also reality at the same time. Reality means like the meet needs to be run in a reasonable way. The teams need to have their scores. They need to be up on the scoreboard, and they don't have to wait overnight or whatever, you know, until the scores are out there. So all that together, you know, makes a picture that is painted for us on how we should run the meets and how the judging should be and all of that. There have been all kind of different ways how to do it in the past already. That's why I call myself more like an observer historian. We have had penalties. We've had times where the judges were not allowed to talk to each other. We had times where it had to be out in 10 minutes and it had to be out in 90 seconds. There were times when we had slow motion or not, and so forth, and so forth, and so forth. We are probably not at the end of this development. We're still in the works on what is eventually going to be the best of all. What I'm observing from the outside is that this problem that occurred yesterday is not the actual problem. What I see much more frequently is that flaws and infringements are not being detected.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff because the pace is picking up, the pace is picking up, the pace is picking up. The quality of the judging is getting a little bit better too, but doesn't keep up with the progression of the sport. So there's more and more that remains undetected.
It's worth mentioning on that note that actually we introduced this rule, I think maybe 9-10 years ago, I guess,
How many
that we put this in, and each year we maybe get 1-2 teams that come along and say, hey, we had a bus and it wasn't. So it's not common. Actually, we witnessed in round 7 an infringement that went unnoticed.
There you go.
So there are the flip sides, but it's probably worth giving a little bit of history to this, because when I first started hosting the challenge back in 2005, 2006, it was that sort of time, I looked at what the current rule sets were, what the FAI were doing, and we adopted that for the first couple of years. But having stood back in the judges' room and watching what's happening, the first thing that I observed was the judges only got to watch the footage one time at normal speed, and then another time at normal speed if they didn't like something. And that was it. If they didn't come to a consensus, they didn't know what was happening, that was done. They had to post what they agreed. And I'm like, why can't you press pause? Why can't you look at it again? Or why can't you slow the video down? Or, you know, why is there this uncertainty? And then followed on by the fact that they actually kind of sat almost like in cubicles. You know, I'm watching the video, you're watching the video, and there was no discussion. No, hey, I thought 0.7 was a bust, or I thought this was okay, or there was no conference. It was 3 people that they took an aggregated score from, and that was the position. So about 3 years in, I took the decision to unilaterally make up my own rules. One of the nice things about hosting your own event, that you can do this, where we say to our judges now, actually, you can watch it as many times as you like. There's no limit. You can watch it at any speed. There's no restriction. You can press pause. You can go forward. You can talk to your colleagues. You can agree so that you're giving out the best you can. Now, in practical terms, when they're going through a 60-point dive, there's only so many times they can do that realistically. But that's how we changed it, and when this ability for the competitors to question was kind of introduced. So that's really like the history of it. Of course, I'm interested in understanding where it goes in the future, because if, as a result of these sorts of discussions, there's better ways to improve judging. I'm interested to hear that, of course.
Well, I almost just on that is, if we're giving the judges so much opportunity to do everything, then eventually we have to trust their final decision and not keep the protesting coming in. And also, you said that the protesting has only been, let's say, with 3 in this meet or 1. I believe the reason it is because in the nature of skydiving, we accept the judge's policy and move on. And if from the start, I remember when I was a youngster and I was busted, I was going, oh no, we're going to kill those guys, we're going to come out there and that's a protest. But we couldn't do it because you could not, they brought in the rule, you cannot protest a judgment call.
Yes.
If that's the way the judges see it, it's a sliding grip, it's a sliding grip. And for me, that's been my career. It's only this meet when we come here, of course, that things can change. And we respect it. We know the rule. We know your rule. And obviously, that's why we come here. We cannot fight against it. It's just a case that when it's at that top level, then you go, is that team that's protesting, if they had lost a point or had a bust and gained a point, would they also then go, hey, in fairness?
And I'm with you. I don't think anybody's going to go to judges and say, hey guys, dock a point, I'll pay you 25.
So then I'm going, well, let's just, what the judges do, let the judges do,
Interesting to note on that point, sorry, I'm going to let Leslie talk, but the rejudgment, they scrutinise to the nth degree. Watch it very slowly from different camera angles on the second, on the rejudge. And the score can go either way. It could be an extra bust. It could be an extra point. And we actually had a protest from ACM today, which resulted in them losing a point. So it can go either way. So
I think that it's a good point. I like always comparing with other sports.
Yeah.
And if I take football, soccer, whatever you call that, as an example there again, they began to use more technology. Okay, so. They have to trust the call not only of the referee on the field. There are a couple of people who are evaluating this and making the final decision. And you cannot. The players have to trust it. They cannot protest it. In fact, when they're protesting, they get the yellow card or the red card being sent off if they're protesting. Yeah. That's how it is, in one of the other sports. Yeah. And they have to trust.
Not an official protest accompanied by £25, is it? That's someone being asked which you would give.
Well, it's a protest.
But it's a football protest.
In the situation of Paul's running his own competition, I think it's up to him to set the rules in the way that he wants. And if he feels that that's the way to give the fairest call, and the fact that there's hardly been maybe one protest a year in 9 years, then that seems to me absolutely fair enough. Yes, I too was brought up on the FAI concept that you can't protest a judge's decision. And I've always thought, well, that doesn't make sense to me, because however good they are, they're human beings, and surely at some point they're going to get it wrong. And why can't you protest a judge's decision? What basically happens is you find somewhere where you question the judge's decision and you put in a protest based on something else, on the fact that the altitudes weren't all the same for that meet. But you basically wouldn't be putting that in unless you believe that you haven't got the points which you should have had on that score. Yes, we trust the judges. The fact that the judges came up with exactly the same score with an hour to scrutinise it all night shows that they are great judges. But no team's going to pay some money to put in a protest unless they believe, really, genuinely, that they should have got those points. I mean, we know when we're a team, when we're in there skydiving or tunnel flying, we know when there's a dodgy point. You know when it's questionable, and you know when you feel it's ill. So from that point of view, why shouldn't we be allowed to protest? And if it wasn't people like Paul doing things different from the FAI, then maybe the FAI wouldn't change. If Paul had never started running this competition, would we be now looking at the third whisk to be happening in Bahrain? The FAI took years and years and years to even recognise tunnel as a sport. Now, without Paul having his competitions, there wouldn't have been other tunnel competitions, and without those other tunnel competitions, the IPC wouldn't have gone, well, hey, we want to buy this, maybe we should be running tunnel competitions. I think things like this move the sport towards a better direction. And if we're ultimately going to go to the point of it being on the Olympics, which is what everybody says that they want right now, we have to address the judging, because we can't be waiting around like we are. So we have to do something, whether or not the protests are involved in that, but it's good to be constantly evaluating our judging.
On that point, for me, this doesn't come down to necessarily because you can't fix all the problems, you shouldn't fix the ones you know about. And the reason I introduced the rule way back when was just down to the fact that if I was faced with a competitor that came to me as meet director and said, even if it was just in casual conversation, we got bussed on round 10, we were tied for a place, we were in with a chance, and it was a really bad call, and we know it was a really bad call, I'd want to be able to look them in the eye and say, is there any way to fix that? If we're deducting a point from someone, we're not talking about missing one and them getting it loosely. We're talking about them looking like they'd made a connection, but we're slashing that point away, or it could be even giving them a penalty if we went back to the old ways. Then for me, that looking somebody in the eye and saying, I'm not even going to look at it again. We're infallible. We're not discussing it. Wasn't really it didn't seem like something I could get behind.
Yeah.
Which is why I wanted to open that up to the ability just to reanalyze, because all we're talking about is looking at more information, looking at it again with more information, slower, more cameras, and to make sure we're not penalising somebody unfairly.
I think in this case, this way or that way, we'll eventually come to a good solution. We don't know exactly yet what it is. Again, it's in the development, but whether it will be more process options or less, or wherever this is leading to, I think there will be a way how to deal with that properly. What I'm concerned about is what I mentioned briefly earlier, that this is not the actual problem any longer.
Yep.
That we have to begin to focus on what is the actual problem, and the actual problem is the undetected flaws. And
let's see those teams protest and ask for to give points
Paul
away.
has a system for that. He's already said that the judges can talk to each other, which they can't normally at a meet. Sometimes a team actually builds the wrong formation, or they miss a point out. And traditionally, all the chief judge can do is direct them to look at a specific point, ask the judges to have a re-watch it, and they can direct them to look at a specific point. I like Paul's idea better. If you can say, guys, they're not even building a B, can you have a look at that?
I think they do that with an absolute, right? There's a rule called absolute where the judge can call an absolute, and then they talk. And also, when you're a coach of a team, and I see my team gets bussed 4 times, and if I can see it, we keep quiet. If I cannot see it, I can go to the chief judge and say, can you explain what are you busting so we don't do that again?
So what's
and
the
there is
difference
an
between
open,
that and a
it's not a protest. They then will say, there's a sliding grip here, and then I go away and I accept the decision.
But what if
they go, whoa, there's nothing, which has happened before the World Meet, there's nothing we can do. We keep
wouldn't you in that circumstance?
You've lost knowing there was no.
Manchester United, Manchester City, is the goal allowed or disallowed? That's the sport, and to me, I'm saying that's what competitors.
To this competition, it's a different competition, and by entering this competition,
that I agree.
You
I'm
agree
talking
to be
about
bound by the rules of this competition. If you don't like the rules, you don't have to enter.
That's why we're here.
Yeah,
that's why we're here.
I think it probably comes down to the fact, at the end of the day, I'm English, and Maradona's goal should have never happened.
Yeah.
So I never wanted to be in a position where I look back on the competition and said, that was the.
Yeah. No. I mean, Leslie, don't get me wrong. We come here and we respect Paul. So I think you're going the wrong direction here. We're not saying we're unhappy. It's just a case of we're speaking about the future of it. What do we do in it?
So going back to Kurt's point there, actually, how can we make the judging better from that position? One of the things that I was toying with as a concept was actually, instead of panels of 3 judges, if you was to have a panel of 5, which obviously is more overhead, having judges is hard anyway, but if you actually had a panel of 5 where each judge looked after 1 point, and the event judge.
You mean one slot or one?
Sorry, one slot.
One slot.
Oh yeah, one slot.
I'm the point judge. I'm the outside centre judge.
That's interesting.
And then the event judge looks at the overall build. So obviously, an experienced event judge can pretty much spot most errors anyway. But if all one slot judge is doing is looking for that grips for that person, they follow them around, maybe it would narrow the focus of vision.
Very interesting.
Oh, absolutely.
And something that I thought about. What do you think? Should we do that next time?
Yes.
But in that sense, you need trained judges, though.
We have trained judges, of course.
That your judges know that slot.
Yes.
Because sometimes the way that things move around, and then you have a slot switcher and it's moving up and down. You can't just follow one guy because he sometimes flies in 2 slots.
Okay.
Yes.
So
a
in
slightly
that
different
sense,
skill set.
And so it's going where Kurt's going. You need, as we all want, we want the best scores, the accurate scores. You need your judges to be as best as they can be. And at the end of the day, we can all go, well, we don't know, the judges are low quality, we need to be high. But this is what we've got. And to be honest with you, I've heard somebody say in the past, when they went back at so many world meets and they rejudged the score, the true champions were still true champions.
Yes.
You know, so in a way I go, hey, let's trust the judges. And yes, if the sport develops, I'm sure the judges, I spoke to one of the judges at the French meet 2 weeks ago, and she was saying they are trying to find judges. There are no judges.
Yeah.
And then we almost have to go, when you go to a world competition or an IPC or event as a country, you have to bring a judge. So they could train, they can get better, because she was saying there's the meet in Bahrain, they don't have judges yet.
Yeah, it's hard work.
Exactly. So,
And also the having those trained judges and how they train them is one thing. We sit down at the end of the meet with the judges and review and see how we could do things better. But as you say, the sport, it's not a question of where it's going to evolve. It's evolved massively even in the last 13 years that we've been doing it. You know, if you came to the World Challenge in 2006, 21 points was getting you at the top of the competition, and now you're not even going to be in the top half of the.
Well, the answer to that is the NSL. In next month, the NSL will open up a new judging system, an online professional judging system. There will be a judging headquarters in the world. There will be 5 judges who are doing nothing else but judging. So all the videos will be uploaded, and they will be looked at in all kind of angles and speeds, and those professionals send the scores back 5 minutes later.
You told us in the beginning we never had to be here.
Next month.
So you're rolling that out next month, Kurt?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Let's see how that. Brilliant.
Well, it's certainly an interesting topic, and I appreciate all of your views on it. At the end of the day, I try to put together a meet that gives everybody a fantastic time and something that we can be proud of from a results point of view as well as a performance. So interested to hear what you guys at home think. You know, should we have an ability to protest the judgment? Should competitors be allowed to say, hey, look at that again, please? Is something we should drop? Should we have more judges? What do you guys think? Leave us some comments on the Facebook page, and we'll certainly look at it for the development of the sport. And as Leslie says, you know, when we try things and everybody has an opinion, pushes it forward, it makes it better for everybody.
Thanks for doing that, Paul.
Yes. Thank you.
You have always been innovative.
Pleasure. As I say, I want to look the competitors in the eye, shake their hands, and know that I've got the right winner there.
Brilliant.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot.
you.
And
You didn't even fight.
we'll be back shortly with you guys for something else.